What I'm about to show you doesn't match what we saw last time. This is the follow-up to the original Woolworth roll, the one that went viral. But this time, I picked up a standard tier roll. Every single obverse and reverse will be shown. Because what's inside this roll raises even more questions. So let's take a closer look at this new roll and see what we're really dealing with. Because right from the start, the outside tells a story of its own. Before we even open the roll, the outside gives us the first set of clues. The wrapper has that vintage, aged look, but like most of these rolls, it's probably artificially aged, not naturally worn. This is not the kind of paper that Woolworth would have used in any case. The Woolworth department store stamp looks identical to the one from the previous roll. Same alignment, same spacing, same ink pressure. This strongly suggests that these rolls were mass-produced, not from any historic department store. And here's where it gets interesting, the crimp. This one looks much cleaner than the usual standard tier rolls. And what's with that glued end? The other end tells a similar story. Consistent compaction, consistent folding. It's the kind of uniformity you'd see from a modern mechanical roller, not from someone wrapping these by hand decades ago. If you've seen my first video, you'll remember the crimp was loose and hand-rolled. Standard tier rolls usually look rougher. But this one? Much cleaner. It appears much more deliberate. This level of consistency suggests that these rolls aren't old, accidental survivors, but were intentionally assembled. Time to open the roll. So, before we see the coins themselves, keep this in mind. The outside already points to careful construction, not randomness. Let's open it up. Just like before, I'm going to open this slowly, so we don't miss anything. Right away, the inner paper looks very similar to the previous roll. Same texture, same type of artificial wear. Even the way the paper tears feels familiar. It's thick, intact, doesn't really fracture like genuinely old paper would. Again, very consistent across these modern assembled rolls. Alright, so there it is. There is our stack. But this is where things start to get interesting. Alright, what have we got? Coin number 1. 1884. New Orleans. Yeah, typical weak O-mint strike. Weak hairline over the ear. Got abrasions. The reverse, actually surprisingly good eagle feathers for an O-mint strike. And it looks like you've got, typical abrasions across the fields and the devices. Reverse, well, again, surprisingly good-looking strike for a New Orleans coin. All right, let's move on. Coin number 2. That's an 1886. Philadelphia. Well, that's a decent strike, but we've got a number of abrasions all across the cheek and the face. Additional hits in the fields. On the reverse, we got more abrasions, a little bit of rim disturbance going on there. Touch of light toning, though. That was kind of nice. But yeah, you can see pretty much what's going on there. We got abrasions everywhere on that obverse. Reverse is a little bit better, but we still got some rim damage going on. All right, coin number 3. That's a 1902. A little bit of color going on there. That's kind of nice. Wow, that's a New Orleans. Okay, that's actually a better strike than I would have thought. Yeah, I mean, overall, that's a decent looking coin. And we do have a fair amount of abrasions throughout the surfaces, though, fields and devices. And the reverse has that same kind of mellow toning. That's really nice. And that's a pretty good breast feather strike for a New Orleans mint. Not upset with that. All right, coin number 4. That's an 1880. Oh, Philly. Okay. All right. Yeah, it looks like we've got a little bit of a weak strike. We've got a bunch of hits to the cheek and the chin. Surfaces look somewhat questionable. I'm not sure this coin hasn't been tampered with. The reverse is a pretty strong strike, but you got the same questionable surface. I don't know. That may have been cleaned or dipped at some point. That coin gives me a little bit of suspicion, frankly. Obverse more than the reverse, but let's move on. Coin number 5. All right, this is an 1890, and that is a Philly. So again, there is a little bit of cartwheel to it, so I don't know. That one looks a little better than the one before it. We do have a bunch of abrasions though. Can't minimize that. And the reverse, fewer marks. You know, it's about the same as the obverse. Pretty consistent quality there. All right, coin number 6. 1890. Philadelphia. Oh my goodness, look at the reflective fields on that one. Oh my goodness. That could well be a DMPL. All right, we've got a little bit of a weak strike for a Philly coin. Do have some abrasions and issues on the obverse, but oh my goodness, the reverse is gorgeous. That's got to be at least a PL, if not a dimple. Big contrast from the front. That is nuts. I mean, look at that. You can see the lights reflected in the fields. That is ridiculous. Okay, that is a gorgeous looking reverse. Now, the obverse, you got a bunch of abrasions. You got a nice little hit to the chin. But overall, I like that coin a lot. All right, number 7. 1881. Another Philly. All right, you got heavy abrasions across the face, cheek, in the fields. That's a shame. Not a high grade coin. Reverse, well, it's cleaner. Only a few minor marks. Overall, better eye appeal, but the obverse has got some issues, especially right there on her chin. Looks like a little rim hit there, too. All right, next one up. Coin 8. 1884. That's a Philly. Wow, interesting date mix we're getting here. Okay, for a Philly coin, that is a surprisingly weak strike, or that could be showing some wear. That could be a slider right there. Reverse, a little better on the surfaces. Breast feathers still look a little soft. I do like the color on that one, though. The reverse has a beautiful mellow tone to it. But yeah, that has been through the war. That's seen better days. All right, coin 9. 1882. Wow, another Philly. Okay, interesting. All right, that almost shows a little bit of wear again. Plus, look at the surfaces. I mean, that one's been torn up. Could be another AU slider right there. Reverse is decent. A little bit of toning, fewer abrasions, better surface, but I don't know. There's a little bit of toning on the obverse as well. But this one has been through a lot. So I'm not totally convinced that is an uncirculated coin. Let me know in the comments. What do you guys think? All right, coin number 10. We've got an 1883, and that's a Philly. Oh, that's a very weak strike for a Philly. Plus, you got some big hits on the cheek. Reverse, a little bit better looking. A little bit of color to it. But the obverse, I think, is where we lose out on this one. Look at that hit to the cheek there. That's just terrible. Reverse looks pretty good, though, I have to say. All right, coin number 11. 1887. Decent luster. Philadelphia. A decent strike. A pretty high number of abrasions. Reverse got some solid surfaces and a die crack up there in the States. Well, and I've got the camera set up on the wrong microscope. My apologies for that. Yeah, let me just go ahead and point out stuff you can't see. This would be a good opportunity for me to say if you've enjoyed this video so far, including my bloopers, please subscribe to the channel. All right, now here comes coin number 12. That's an 1884. New Orleans. Oh, and once again, I'm on the wrong camera, so please bear with me, everybody. And, if you think I'm human and you can sympathize with me, well, why don't you like this video and throw this poor guy a bone, because I'm having a rough day on the cameras. And yeah, that's really good when, oh, okay, there we go. All right, so you can see we've got a decent mint strike, a fair number of abrasions, though, a little bit of mild toning. We've got a better strike on the reverse, a little bit of the mellow tone again. That's a better look at it. Yeah, you can see the color on that. That's really kind of nice, actually. All right, coin number 13. That's an 1890. Philadelphia. And that's a pretty weak strike. Or could even be circulation. This could be an AU slider here. Now the reverse, weak strike and virtually no marks. I mean, that's interesting. That's a very interesting combination. So, I don't know. Let me know in the comments. What do you guys think? Is that a coin that is just struck weak, or is that an AU slider? All right, moving on. Coin number 14. We have an 1889. That is a Philadelphia. We've got some russet colored toning going on down there. Pretty good strike, actually. Relatively few marks. Pretty decent detail again on the reverse. And I like that russet tone there. And the reverse, yeah, it looks like there's relatively few hits. I like that one. That's not a bad looking coin. All right, number 15. This is an 1882 with some pretty semi-proof like qualities there. Yeah, you could even see the reflection there. That's probably 4 to 6 inches. That could be another dimple right there. And that is a New Orleans. Look at that. All right, that's a pretty good strike for New Orleans, but we do have a pretty good number of bag marks too. Reverse, another solid strike. Pretty nice looking, good luster, only a few minor hits. Yeah, look at that semi-proof-like or proof-like surface, but again, you've got some hits through the cheek and the face. Reverse looks pretty clean in comparison. All right, coin number 16. 1904. And that's a New Orleans. Not a bad looking strike, actually. Heavy bag marks and abrasions, though. A little better than average strike quality. Reverse is very good detail. Pretty clean surfaces, actually. And you've got that little mellow rim tone going on. Yeah, look at that. That's actually pretty. I mean, it's probably another low grade, 61, maybe a 62. Let me know in the comments what you think that one would be. All right, here comes number 17. That's a 1901, maybe a semi PL, obverse. That's a New Orleans. Fair strike, but a good amount of hits to the face and chin. Reverse, again, a little bit of a weak strike. Surface is a little cleaner, though. I mean, that strike doesn't really bother me, and overall, that's not too many bag marks, really. What do you think this one would grade? Let me know in the comments. All right, getting down to it. Coin number 18. That is a 1900 New Orleans. Wow. Now that's a pretty good strike with fewer than expected abrasions. And then, again, a pretty strong strike on the reverse. A little bit of toning. Clean overall surface. So that's got that same kind of mellow russet toning. Decent strike. I'm not upset with this coin. Reverse, pretty clean. Looking good. Not upset with that. All right. 19 is an 1880. That's an S with some very noticeable toning. A little bit of a weak strike. Got a few hits. Face has got a couple of marks. Wow, look at that color on the reverse. Eagle feathers, not too bad. And that could be a large S mint mark, as a matter of fact. We'll take a look at that in a second. Again, bag marks, abrasions, nothing terrible. I like that color. Got good luster, reflective surfaces, very nice color. Yeah, look at that large S. All right, and coin number 20. Here we go. This is an 1889 Philly. Somewhat weak strike. Pretty good amount of bag marks. Reverse, yeah, also a little bit weak. A little bit more noticeable toning, though. So, yeah, just a few hits to the fields. And a couple of hits down there on her cheek. The reverse looks pretty nice. I like that coloration. Surfaces fairly clean, not too shabby. Now that we've gone through all 20 coins, a few patterns stand out immediately. First, the date and mint mark mix in this roll is far more diverse than what I saw in my previous Woolworth roll. In typical department store era rolls, and even in most standard tier modern rolls, you'll see multiple duplicates of the same common dates. Here we had quite a few O mints and a surprising spread of Philadelphia mint issues from unrelated years. The surface quality also ranged far more widely than expected. We saw questionable surfaces, a couple of possible AU sliders, the typical Mint State 60 chatter and abrasions, one or two with some semi-proof-like reflectivity, and even one coin that's a pretty solid DMPL surface, all within the same roll. That level of inconsistency doesn't support the idea of natural, original, bank-wrapped storage. Instead, it strongly suggests these coins were selected and assembled deliberately. And again, there's nothing here that points to any of this being from Woolworth's or from any department store system at all. These coins show no traits of genuine period packaging. All right, so here's my conclusion after inspecting every coin, the wrapper, the crimps, and the overall consistency. This roll was almost certainly assembled, not discovered, not preserved, and not tied in any real way to Woolworth. And based on the mix of nicer coins, unexpected mint marks, and unusual variety, I suspect this roll may have been intentionally seeded with better pieces. I opened this roll exactly as it arrived and showed every obverse and every reverse so you could see the same evidence I'm seeing. The takeaway here is simple. Nostalgia sells. But nostalgia also creates opportunities for sellers to manufacture stories that the coins just can't support. If you haven't seen the first Woolworth roll video, that one started all of this. I've linked it right here on the screen. Watch that one next to compare the two rolls side by side. If you enjoy these deep dive numismatic investigations, please make sure you subscribe and join me for future roll openings, grading reviews, and coin history breakdowns. And if you want to see these coins sold live, well, join me on my Whatnot streams every Thursday and Saturday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern. I always show coins under multiple cameras and transparency comes first. Thank you for watching. The original Woolworth roll video is linked here and you can subscribe right there. I'll see you in the next deep dive.